Right, so welcome to Snowflake. This is just the interface. Just want to give you a little overview of what it looks like. Very similar to what we saw in SQL Server Management Studio with your Object Explorer on the left and your query space in the middle. And then if you wanted to view data at the bottom here, you could see it. I'll get into more detail about that a bit later. We'll just start off with the replicate because this is where we're going to be going to. I'm going to be moving the data from a SQL Server instance to our replicated database. After that, we'll do a compose where we create the data warehouse and a data mart. Right, replicate, here we are. Simple interface, nothing funny. It's clean, it's simple, and this is what you would be welcome to. You can monitor your pipelines that have been loaded previously. Here they are. Right now, these are all stopped because we're not running anything right now. We can adjust our endpoints just to manage our connections. We're going to use the QDI demo, which is just a SQL Server source, and we're going to be pumping it to a Snowflake instance. Standard procedure of credentials, nothing funny. So let's start off. I'm going to start this project with the full CDC functionality of Replicate. Now, the CDC functionality is one of the great things about this platform. It utilizes the source system's transaction logs to determine which records have been replicated and which ones haven't. Now, because it uses the transaction logs, it's not using huge queries that are impacting your production system constantly. So this is something that can be happening sub-second. It's a small platform that's being used. So it's instant and minimal impact to your production systems. Cool. So here we go. I'm just going to be dragging our source and our Snowflake destination. We're going to be selecting our tables. So this is something typically your data engineers would be going through. They'll be investigating where these tables are coming from, what they're doing, how we're going to get to them. Today, I'm going to do a full lift and shift of a schema. Today, we're going to use sales, and we see the tables that are within that schema. I'm going to add all of them, but obviously, depending on your requirements, you can add or remove tables as you need. You can also add more than one schema if you want, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to be using one for now. Here we can see our tables that are going to be loaded in the schema. We also have the option here to select specific transformations and specific columns. You can see which columns you can add, which ones you can remove. You can add specific columns. You can do specific filters if you needed to. It's all entirely up to what the project requires. So I'm going to start this project off. Just going to be copying those tables over to our destination. And you can see the project starts off. So what it's doing now, it's generating the code in the background that takes all this source data, all those tables, all those schemas, and those structures, and taking it to our destination. You can see how smooth and quick that is, and it's running as it goes. Great. Database has been replicated. We can view that into Snowflake. We can see the replicated new. There's our sales schema, and there are the tables all that have been replicated. Great. There's CT tables as well. These are the change tracking tables, just to monitor. It's internal tables that QDI utilizes to monitor which have been changes and what's been taken over and what not. Great. So that's your replicate in a nutshell. What also happens is if you do an update, it fixes the update immediately and it transfers it to your destination as well. It happens instantly, and you'll just notice that it inserted into those tables in our replicated tables as you go along. We can also just preview this, and you'll see the data is within our database. Replicate in a nutshell. 5 minutes and we're done. So let's go over to compose. And this is what it would look like. And let's use a scenario of your sales manager decides we need to have extra information from the sales data source. First things first, we've got our connection set up. We're going to be using the Snowflake instance, and we're going to be using our replicated as our sources as well. Cool. Start off. Oops, sorry. First, we got to discover. We've got to pick up what are our objects within our source system. So here you're going to see how it automatically picks up the relationships, picks up the information that we've got, and creates the scripts and the objects that we need to create this in project. There are the tables we've got in the sales schema, and it's going to be generating the model. Great. It's picked up the 9 entities. We've picked up relationships. There are your tables that are all related with each other within that schema. And it's picked up the 78 attributes that are associated with those tables. Great. Happy that the model's been created. Now the next step would be, let's create a data warehouse. Cool. So here we can see all of the tables that are going to be picked up that we're going to be generating. So as a first step, let me just create the instance. It's going through all those steps. You'll notice that it's got satellites and hubs that are mentioned there. So it's using the a data vault approach to this. And it's just come now. I think let's just try and boost this up a little bit, because right now we've got a small instance. So I'm just going to boost this up. So just do a little bit faster. Cool. That's how quick it was just to boost it up, speed it up. Here we go. We've got a larger instance happening, and it's successfully created that for us. In there, I'm just validating the model after we just boosted that. Great. Now we're going to do is we're going to be generating the ETL that actually takes this data from our source and pumps it into a data warehouse. This is the code that typically would have taken a few days, a few weeks, depending on the size of your environment and the complexity of your environment. So right now I've done that in a few seconds. The data team has been busy just watching the screen over there, and giving them the ability to be busy with other stuff. Right, commands have been created. Just for this little simple structure, we've got 532 instructions that has just been created. You can see them and monitor them and see exactly what has been done. Right, I don't know how long it would have taken your developers to create all 532 instructions. Let's run these instructions now and pump that into our data warehouse. Once this gets started, I'll just switch over to an instance that we've already set up for this, just for the interest of time. And there we go, it's kicked off. So while this continues, let's just switch over to our Snowflake setup and just show you what it looks like. Cool. So once the file has been generated and run an ETL commands done, we've got a fully working data warehouse. We can see the data warehouse if we go back to the worksheets. Just get to the data warehouse. You can see that it's already created our schema. And there are the tables. This is actually the one we've just been run now. So it's, as it goes along, it updates it. Let's close this. Great. So the warehouse is done. It's laying there. We're happy with it. The next step would be, let's go and create a data mart just to isolate what information we are exposing to which audience. So you can see here we've already created a sales transaction. It's got its star schema and its dimensions, but let me take you through the process of creating a new one. Just going to keep the name as it is, just for the demo. I'm going to say it's a transactional one, but you've got the option for aggregated and state-oriented as well. And let's be using the order lines for today. It's now picked up, order lines is the fact table, and it's picked up that these are the dimensions that would be associated to that automatically, based on the metadata that comes from our source system. And we're going to be using the picking completed date as our actual transactional point. Cool. So here we are in our data mart we just created. Got the star schema happening there. We can see the order lines as a fact, and there are associated dimensions. So let's create those tables. So it's generating all that code in the background, publishing this to our destination database, and you can see how the naming convention that it uses as well. There we go. Great. Now we've created the actual physical objects. Now we need to move the data into those points. So let's generate the ETL code for that. Okay, so once again, we've just created a bunch of commands, 164 lines of code, or not lines, commands, that would be used to move your data. That would be something that would have taken very long for a developer to physically do themselves as well. So let's run this. While that runs, this is just pumping the data into our destination. So let me show you what it looks like on our destination side. Got the data warehouse done. Now let's look at the data mart. It's coming still, so let me just refresh, and there we go. All right, there we go. There's our data mart, and there are tables that have now been pumped into our data mart. We can see the sales transaction, and we can see the order lines as well. You just run this, just preview the customers over there, and then we've got all our customers lined up and ready. So compose from start to finish. We've created a data warehouse, we've created a data mart in a few minutes. This is something that would typically take a few weeks to implement fully. Let me just show you around about Snowflakes a bit. So depending on the role that you've assigned your user, you can have different functionalities and things that you can do within Snowflake. Just to give you a little terminology here, you sort of would have seen the warehouse over here. So that the terminology Snowflake uses is a little bit different to what we used to in a data modeling and a data platform. Whereas a warehouse in Snowflake is actually the compute power that is assigned to your instance. You can have more than one, and you saw me in the demo scaling it up as I needed. But you also have the option to let it automatically scale. You also have the option to have more than one cluster. And you can set it to suspend your instance to save yourself costs. And you've got the option of doing that over 5 minutes, after 10 minutes of inactivity. So you've got the option to really work with your instances. We've got the option to really automate the whole process of improving your performance when needed and then scaling it down when it's really quiet to save your costs in your business. Right, so your worksheets would be your query environment, as you've seen already, with your data explorer on the side and your data on the bottom here, and you can have your queries run on that side. You got your database, you can view all the databases there, and you can do all sorts of things on your database as well. You can view your tables, you've got views, you've got schemas as well to separate the different database objects. Same thing you would always usually do in your normal databases. But the difference is this is on the cloud and accessible, and it's flexible in a way that you can move it from an Azure instance to an AWS instance, even to a Google Cloud if you needed to.